Good morning again. I hope you enjoyed the coffee break. I'm introducing slowly so that everyone can find their way to a seat so that we can start our session, our exciting session on the topic of energy communities and the role that energy communities should play, can play in a just energy transition. Now, to start off, and this is already by now, you should all be familiar with it, we have some housekeeping indications. So you know that in order to connect to the Wi-Fi, you can use information indicated around the venue. I don't know if you can see it now. So the name of the Wi-Fi network for those joining us now is Just Transition Platform. The password JTP April 24. And we have remote interpretation. Thank you also to our interpreters. We have interpretation in English, Czech, Polish, Greek, French, Spanish, which is available on the Interactio application. You can download the app, available on iOS and Android, and you can listen to the interpretation by joining the event with the following code. Depending if you are here together with us in the room, then in that case, the code is with capital letters GTP April 24. And if you're online, it's GT April 24 online, all with capital letters. And then during the question and answer session, for all of you here present in the room, please do simply raise your hand when you want to ask a question. And for the online audience, you can ask your questions with the swap card, chat, the question and answer function. So I'm Paula Pinho. I work at the European Commission in the department, the Director General for Energy, dealing, among other topics, with just transition. And it is therefore a big pleasure to be here with you to discuss energy communities, its role in the just transition, and be accompanied by an excellent set of panelists who will contribute with their own experience in setting up energy communities in different places and in different countries in the European Union. And just to set a bit the scene, we know that energy communities do play a key role in achieving the EU's energy transition targets. Some even estimate that by 2050 we could have 50% of the EU's renewable energy generated by citizens, which is quite impressive. Now, we have, from the Commission side, together with the European Parliament, with the Council, put forward provisions in legislation which are meant to enable the setting up of the energy communities and to really make it possible that citizens can produce and share the energy they produce. This is foreseen, for instance, in the Renewable Energy Directive, but also in the Internal Electricity Market Directive, and now also most recently with the Social Climate Fund, which all of it paves the way for the establishment of energy communities. And we see also that regional and local governments are very eager to take up this socially inclusive approach. And one example of this is to see how energy communities have been fitting prominently in the territorial just transition plans, even if sometimes we don't yet have a national regulatory framework. But there is a lot of interest in this. And we've just come in the European Commission from a very interesting initiative called the Citizens Dialogue, where 150 citizens were randomly selected across the EU and have come for 3 weekends to Brussels to discuss the topic of energy efficiency. And the idea was that at the end they would provide recommendations to us as policymakers in terms of what could and should be done on the energy efficiency front. And guess what? And that's why I'm bringing this here. Out of the 13 recommendations, there were 2 which concern precisely the topic of energy communities. And this has come from the citizens. And I will take the liberty of reading those 2 recommendations. One was help EU citizens develop energy communities focused on energy efficiency by providing the necessary information and financial support. And the other was develop energy efficient communities for responsible consumption and increased local energy production. So we can see that citizens across the EU are more and more familiar with this and are actually keen in seizing the opportunities that energy communities bring. So we're also very pleased to announce the upcoming EU Energy Communities Facility, where we will have a first call in 2025. But I've spoken enough, and now it's time to go to our session, where we will have the possibility to hear about experiences, share experiences in the development of energy communities, discuss supporting schemes, best practices, also challenges, for the planning, for the funding, and for the launch of such energy communities. So I'm very pleased to start with Arthur Hinch before we go into the panel. And Arthur is a senior expert in sustainable energy systems from ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability. And Arthur is the author of a recently published Just Transition program toolkit on enabling energy communities. He's also part of the EU Covenant of Mayors Office, so has a lot of experience precisely with the challenges of ensuring the just transition at local level, at communities level. It's therefore a pleasure to invite Arthur to present us his work on energy communities. Arthur, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, and hello and welcome to all, also from my side, and pleasure to be here. Indeed, so I'm going to take the next 8 minutes, I've been told, to talk to you about energy communities and specifically the interface with just transitions. I'm going to talk a little bit about what do we actually mean with an energy community, but also why it's particularly interesting to look at this concept from the perspective of a just transition and how these 2 concepts actually interface. So let's maybe start recapping what is a just transition, what does it actually mean? Of course, we have the general kind of slogan, according to the Just Transition platform, that an just transition has to ensure a fair and just transition that leaves no person or region behind. We know that, right? It also means no person, no citizens. It means that people need to be able to afford the energy, etc. But we also have to know that out there in the world, as I like to say, there are very different interpretations of what a just transition actually is. Depends on who you talk to. Based on a lot of insights from multiple projects, there has been now a quite clear understanding that just transition is a complex, systematic change process which results in a socially and politically accepted transition away from, in this particular case, coal plus energy sources, complemented with economic renewal to ensure that no one is left behind. So suddenly it becomes a lot more complex. And I think it's within this framework that energy communities also need to be very much understood. What are energy communities? As was already mentioned just now, I mean, we have a lovely regulatory framework from the European level that is increasingly being transposed on the national level that enables energy communities. Energy communities as a concept are generally a relatively broad concept, but it refers to a collective initiatives of stakeholders, which can be citizens, as citizens themselves, but also local authorities, businesses, SMEs, who jointly finance, own, govern, and carry out energy-related activities. That can be a lot of stuff. It can be production, consumption, aggregation. It can be engaging in business models around collective self-consumption, energy sharing, you name it. I won't go too much into detail here, but on the right side, you will see the European enabling framework contained in the 2 directives that needs to be transposed. And here, basically, we see that energy communities, as it is understood on a European level, very much is about the ownership of renewable energy assets on the local level by local stakeholders. That is key. Now, as it was already mentioned, indeed, we have produced a toolkit on not so much telling you how to set up an energy community. There are other toolkits that have already been doing that. But this toolkit was created based on a demand from you and from Just Transition Fund regions to understand more how to enable energy communities specifically within the socioeconomic context of carbon-intensive regions and coal-plus regions. So the nuances in that sense. If you're interested, by the way, in more on-demand kind of toolkits on certain topics, we've produced others on that, but also my colleague Emma Kraus should be somewhere in the audience if you would like to wave. Maybe she's your contact person either now or later to talk to if you want more of those. Now, adjust energy communities. Of course, the engagement of citizens and SMEs and local stakeholders in any energy community has the potential to make the energy transition more just, because you give people a say about the price of energy, the ownership of the energy, and just generally become active energy citizens. But given the fact that we talk about just transitions, we have to be also transparent and kind of honest about certain elements. We have to ask, when we say just, we also have to ask just for whom. Also, in an energy community, of course, it can be an energy community that is developed by mostly people who are in a position to afford investing into an energy community. So what can we do to enable energy communities that not only allow those that can invest into an energy community to invest, but also to lower the cost of those who cannot either be part of the energy community themselves for financial reasons or just generally struggle with energy poverty. That is what we should be going to within the framework of just transitions. Also, we have to be quite conscious. Thank you. I'm very conscious of the time. That's why I always tend to speak quickly, but thank you very much. We also have to be quite cautious in terms of how terms such as citizen-led and community-driven tend to be used in general kind of policy discourse. This does not only refer to energy communities, but just in general. We just have to be aware that when somebody says an initiative is citizen-led or community-driven, it helps sometimes to ask, what exactly do we mean with that? It's just a healthy way of looking at it, basically. Energy communities and regional identities. Why is this so important? Of course, we see that just transition regions have a very strong energy-producing legacy and heritage. We see that there is a potential to facilitate the concept of energy communities by directly connecting to that common energy heritage. Say, okay, you have been producing energy as a collective in the past. Why not continue having that local ownership via the medium of energy communities? However, we have to be also careful how we communicate about that. If we say, well, you're a former miner and you had a huge wage, and now you're supposed to run an energy community, and mind you, specifically in just transition regions, but also around Europe, very often energy communities, while there are some professionalized energy communities, many of them will be volunteer-based. We have to be quite cautious how we communicate about that. There's also increasing amount of private sector energy communities. What do I mean with that? These will be energy communities or initiatives that are carried by a private sector actor, which in principle is not an issue, but we have to be quite cautious of how that relates to the European legislation. It is quite clear that a renewable energy community has to have the ownership of local stakeholders. So also here sometimes it helps to ask, who actually owns the renewable energy asset. But of course, if you look into what is happening out there, you see that different kinds of energy communities already add different kinds of values. They can contribute to local jobs. They can contribute to attracting people in the region. They can contribute to lowering prices. So it really depends, many different forms and a lot of possible. However, we also should be cautious of the fact that around Europe there's many different willingnesses, I suppose, of citizens to be active as volunteers in their community. Yeah? So even though generally we have a clear understanding that citizens are calling for an energy community, energy communities to be accelerated, we also have to be conscious of the fact that many citizens are not so keen to be engaged as volunteers in such an initiative, and that's why we think energy communities in just transition regions should be framed very much or promoted as, it's a great opportunity for citizens to be engaged, also voluntarily, in their energy supply and consumption, but it should not only be sold as a means for people to engage voluntarily. We need collaborations with municipalities, we need collaboration with service providers that are able to meet this demand and essentially avoid a situation where we're essentially asking people to do this kind of stuff in their free time primarily. When it comes to funding energy communities, it is essential that any kind of public support that you would like to consider within the framework of the Just Transition Fund and the Just Transition region, that this is public funds that are only made accessible to those energy communities which qualify as renewable energy communities or citizen energy communities under the European legislation. This means that those really bottom-up, citizens-driven energy communities are able to access public support where they need it, because obviously they don't have the capacity, such as traditional market actors, to compete on the market, while making sure that these kind of support structures really only target them, and still, and that private other market actors who have other means of acquiring the necessary capital don't necessarily take or make use of public funds for their activities. One opportunity, for instance, would be to set up so-called municipal energy funds to promote social enterprises, which would help a local energy community to carry out its activities, but reduce a little bit the reliance on unpaid contributions. So summing up then, 5 key principles on how we think energy communities could be promoted in Just Transition Fund regions. First, very much use the term, your region, your energy. Drive home the fact that in the past people have been engaged with energy, so there is a strong opportunity to build on this collective heritage. But of course, be cautious also of how you communicate, as I said about that. Energy communities should not be primarily a means for people to make money. That's not, of course, generally not their ultimate aim, never, or mostly. But when it comes to understanding the dire situation that we find ourselves in with regard to energy costs, energy communities should increasingly start to walk the talk and to be focused at reducing the energy costs of those who cannot afford it. And also, potentially, reduce the cost of municipal services. Mind you that also municipal services or a public authority can be a direct member of an energy community. The exact legal form of an energy community can be everything. It can be a cooperative, it can be a foundation, it can be a housing association, it can be a limited liability company. It depends a little bit on what you choose. Also, as I mentioned, in GTF regions, volunteering should not necessarily be highlighted as the main principle of energy communities. Instead, it is essential that you work with public authorities and or service providers to be able to outsource a certain amount of the day-to-day technical work to professionals. But nonetheless, of course, try and keep as much as the benefit and the ownership of the asset local to actually, drive home the message of there's a lot of value in actually owning and controlling the price locally. Finally, another opportunity is to mandate that large-scale renewable energy sources projects include a certain percentage of local ownership into their project, and that can be via an energy community, but also another scheme. Alternatively, it could be done that a percentage of a large project could be mandated to be given to the local municipality, to setting up community benefit schemes or community funds. So an energy community is, by the way, also then in that sense only one potential way to create this kind of community value, but it might be a very effective one. And I already said, when you promote funding for energy communities, please make them easy to access. What we often hear is that citizens who want to be engaged in the energy transition struggle to understand the complexity, the insane complexity of the energy market. They struggle in participating with when it comes to application for funding schemes. And here it's important to make them easy as possible. The toolkit that I just mentioned gives several examples of seed funds that are specifically addressed at renewable energy communities. And of course, as Paula mentioned, also the European Energy Communities Facilities will be doing that to provide an easy-to-access funds for citizens and SMEs and others that want to be engaged in the energy transition but are not necessarily energy professionals. Very important to take that into account. But It should be only accessible by those who classify as renewable energy communities or community energy, citizen energy communities under EU law as the basic principle. I think that's the 5 principles. I hope I stayed in time. I don't know. I spoke slower, so I can't really say. Yeah? But thanks a lot, and looking forward to the presentation.
Yes.
Discussion.
Thank you very much, Arthur, and a big round of applause. One can sense that there is so much that you have to tell us about this, and that you really went deep into the subject, not just in theory, but also in practice. So I'd like to use the opportunity to see if there are any questions from the participants in the room or online. Let's give it a few seconds to see if somebody breaks the ice. It's a unique opportunity. You have an expert here in setting up energy communities. Not online? Okay. So if not now, maybe also in the coffee break, Arthur will be. We have a question there. Very good. If you don't mind standing up, and the microphone will reach you. Excellent. And presenting yourself.
Hi, my name is Miuka Stempień. I'm from Bankwatch. My question is regarding legislation, because one of the major issues in many of the countries with setting up energy communities is the national level legislation linked to energy communities. And how do you see, I don't know, generally some methods in which we can push for changes in this regards, because until we actually change the legislation in many of the countries, we're not able to even move forward with energy communities. The second big issue, I mean, we know this also from the Greek sort of development of the energy communities, that one of the biggest problems with development of energy communities is, sort of accessing the grid. So if you could say something about that, that would also be great. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thanks a lot for the questions. And yes, you're fully right, of course. Ultimately, Europe sets the European enabling framework, but it's up down to the member states to promote the member states' legislation. What we have been doing in the past a lot, and still, of course, is look at good examples of how the legislation has already been transposed in several member states. How I would, for instance, point at Italy with its quite clear provisions around renewable energy communities and energy sharing. Portugal, I think, was mentioned also as a good example. The Netherlands with its kind of general kind of climate agreement to have voluntary 50% local ownership of renewable energy assets. So these are these good examples, where you really showed that it makes societal sense, but also economic sense to have energy communities be recognized as a strong part of the energy system. So I think it's good examples that we have to look at. And when it comes to tracking the transposition, I would really recommend that you take a look at the transposition tracker that is online at the Rescue EU website. You might be aware of it. They do a really good job in monitoring the transposition, and I think that's also a good reference point. And your second question, I'm sorry, was?
The grid. Access
the grid,
to the
yes. Yeah, that's indeed a good point, and we tend to hear that everywhere, indeed. Of course, here I would like to flag that the grid issue, I do hear it coming up a lot with energy communities, but it's not an issue that is exclusive to energy communities. I mean, we have a huge issue when it comes to the deployment of grids. It's a very complex issue. If I may take the German example, for instance, we have 900 distribution service operators in Germany, and they all kind of have their own challenges to kind of integrate different kind of renewable energy sources. So I think first it's important to understand that it's not only energy communities which are struggling with that. The second is that ultimately, it depends. I think as much as possible, energy communities need to also engage in schemes which actually rely less on feed-in into the local distribution grid and instead actually engage in collective self-consumption. And different kinds of forms of energy sharing, but of course generally energy sharing goes via the local grid, so that's a bit of a question. But in principle, ideally, it was mentioned by Paula also that there is an interest of citizens to have energy efficient and have this element of behavioral change that is stimulated by energy communities. I think that's the other part. So ideally, people who engage in an energy sharing scheme or who become part of an energy community, they also feel incentivized to lower their consumption, to have more responsible, sustainable energy production and consumption behavioral patterns. And that results in less strain on the grid in the first place. So it's different elements. Of course, I mean, it depends. I mean, again, I think in Italy they're doing a relatively good job in terms of the national grid regulator to acknowledge very much the urgency of integrating them, energy communities, and it's moving ahead slowly, but ultimately we have been collectively investing far too little in our distribution grids over the past years, and this generally needs to increase, but crucially, not only for energy communities, but for all renewables. Like also large projects are waiting to be connected to the grid, and ultimately we need both the small energy communities and the large energy communities and the private projects to work in harmony to achieve our climate neutrality goals. So I think that's the point here.
Thank you very much, Arthur, and also to the question, because that already brings us and raises two key issues: implementation of the legislation. And now we said we have a regulatory framework. Now, of course, the first key step is to implement it, and then, of course, access to the grid, which is not specific to the topic of energy communities, but it is a general issue of concern. So thank you very much, Arthur. And said also in the break afterwards, Arthur is here, and please do use the opportunity to ask him questions. And this is an excellent segue into our panel discussion. So I will then move on to presenting our 5 panelists. And actually, I will ask each of the panelists to present her or himself, starting with, we'll start here, next to me, with Cesar Valazameda Tranque, from the EU Programs Technician from Fundación Asturiana de la Energía. And Cesar is representing the case of Langreo in Asturias. But tell us a bit more about you, Cesar.
Yeah, hello, thank you very much. My work experience is around the topic of energy from time ago. Here I would like to introduce Asturias. Asturias is one of the coal region in transition. But apart from that, it's a real interesting and nice region to visit us. So let me invite you to visit the Asturias as a green paradise. Mm-hmm. So we have a very historical tradition of coal. These coal activities generate the promotion of thermal power plants in 3 coal basins. And this attracts the attention of the electro-intensive industry in the region. So after that, and with the closure of the coal activities and also the phasing out process going to the end, the electro-intensive industry is also in a risk, incrementing the employment in the region. So this is named something like the perfect storm there in Asturias. So this also is a great challenge for us because we have a new opportunity to generate new business around the renewable energy sources, the promotion of interesting projects supported by our regional government and also by the central government in order to promote these new activities in the region. Projects around renewables, projects around recovering land from with heap or coal mines, interested in the promotion of the region. So taking this into account, Asturias is also addressing one strong demographic challenge, because the birth rates are decreasing, also the aging population, and the migration balance is negative from time ago. So especially people moving from regions, from rural areas to the urban areas, also outside the region. So this is also a real challenge for Asturias.
Cesar, may I interrupt you? And then we'll come back to the challenges, because this will be clearly one question that I'd like to ask you. So now we just wanted to make a quick presentation round. So I would then ask Teresa Muskova from Enercom and from Czechia to also present herself. Teresa represents LAG Opavsko, which is a beneficiary of a project sponsored by the European Commission and DG Regio in particular, the project Support to Creation of Energy Communities in the Czech Just Transition Regions. Teresa, tell us more about you and your work.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Teresa Mušková and I come from Czech Republic. We have 3 coal regions, as you can see on this presentation slide, and they are named Ústí nad Labem, Karlovy Vary, and Moravian Silesian region, and I come from Moravian Silesian region. I'm representative of 2 associations, Local Action Group Opavsko, which initiated establishing of the second association, Enercom Opavsko. Local action groups are focused on countryside development, and we have almost 180 local action groups in Czech Republic. Not all of them work with the topic of energy communities. However, based on the principles of our work, we have great positions for developing this topic. Despite the fact that Opavsko has never been the area where the coal was mined, as a part of Moravian Silesian coal region and the closest neighbor of mining localities, we have always supported mining by technical and human resources. And we have been affected by coal consumption and subsequent environmental problems. So this is also a reason why our team has been involved in developing of energy community topic for almost 20 years, and we are glad that we can be a part of Just Transition process. Thank you for your invitation.
Excellent, thank you, Teresa. And then we have with us also Lina Talistu, geoinformatics specialist from Alutaguse municipality government in Estonia, and expert from the so-called TARGET Energy Communities project. Lina, tell us about you and your work.
Good morning. I represent here Alutaguse municipality from Estonia, and we were a beneficiary of TARGET project. And Alutaguse municipality is characterized as large territory, sparse population, and a third of our territory is affected by oil shale mining. And we, as a municipality, try to support renewable energy solutions. And Tudulinna village, Tudulinna is tiny village in Alutaguse, and municipality owns there about 3 hectares of land, which is suitable for developing PV parks. And we thought that the energy community approach is possible to implement there. And in cooperation with European Investment Bank and Association of Local Authorities in Ida-Viru County, we tried to work out this model which could be used in other areas in Ida-Viru County.
Thank you very much, Lina. And then we have with us from Greece, Lefteris Ioannidis, member of the local council in the municipality of Kozani, and actually former mayor of Kozani. So again, with a very, very relevant and hands-on experience. And Lefteris is also the coordinator of the network of energy communities of Fellows.
Well, Good morning. I think the first speaker told us everything. He was very good. But I will try to add some things, some ideas. I came from Greece, from Kozani. Kozani is the capital of the region of Western Macedonia. It's the biggest city, of course, and we're facing the challenge of adjust to the transition to the post-lignite era. And we are seeking a more viable, more productive social and financial and economical model for our area. We have, first of all, let me describe the context. Kozani and our region face a very important unemployment problem. It's very important because we're talking about the social cohesion. The unemployment rate in Kozani is double than the other Greece, 19.5%, while the country's is just 10.5%. And this is a very important problem. In youth unemployment rate, Kozani, Western Macedonia, is included in the first five regions across Europe. 2019, Prime Minister announced the phasing out of lignite by 2028 at the latest. This was a shock for locals because lignite was the main pillar of productive model for decades. And the peak of lignite industry, 74% of domestic electricity consumption produced from lignites of Western Macedonia, and about 35% of gross added value of the region came also from lignite. We're facing now the challenge of adjusting to the post-lignite era, and this should happen in a social way, social just way, seeking to maintain the social cohesion in the region. The region, last 10 years, has lost 10% of the population. The transition, as first speaker mentioned, is a very complex and difficult process. It's a pathway to alternative, different, I hope, a more comprehensive social and economic model. In this context, we try to promote the idea of energy communities. We have established some energy communities across the region, and we have established also a network in order to promote the idea of energy communities in the whole area as a tool for just transition of our region. And secondly, to deal the problem of energy poverty. Kozani, it's not like Creta, it's not like Peloponnese. Kozani is in the north of Greece. It's the cold and the winter there is very strong, it's very long, and a lot of people there cannot heat their houses. 1 year ago, on behalf of our community, a study titled Identification and Addressing the Energy Networks of Mavrodendri Village was prepared. Mavrodendri is my village, approximately 1,000 inhabitants. But of course, you can adjust the results in the whole of the region, especially in rural areas. The study tried to describe the reality of energy situation of the household of the village. In the question, am I satisfied with the operating of the heating system? More than 60% answered that they disagree and strongly disagree with the above statement. And more than 60% still use oil as a heating system. And more than 50% agree and strongly agree that the family income isn't sufficient to meet the financial obligations for heating. Energy communities is a tool for energy transition, and I believe is the most important tool for a just energy transition beyond fossil fuel. This is our idea, and this is we'll try to promote in our region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lefterios. You already set out the scene in a very concrete manner of what it means, the transition very concretely for the local communities. And last but definitely not least, I turn to Claudia Carani, EU and Innovation Department Manager from the Agency for Energy and Sustainable Development, and also C4T Working Group core member on energy, focusing, of course, on energy communities. Claudia.
Yes, thanks very much for this invitation. I represent here the Energy Agency, ICE. We are based in the north of Italy, in Modena, close to Bologna and Emilia-Romagna region. And we have been created in 1999 as a local energy agency, but as an association of public members, we enlarged our membership. Now we have members from the whole country. We have small towns, like a small town in the Valle d'Aosta with 400 inhabitants, and we have as member the capital city of Rome. So we really have a focus on different type of public authorities. We have also in our membership universities, parks, public companies that work on water management, social housing companies. So we have to provide sustainability project, technical assistance, and transition services to different kind of public authorities. As responsible for the European project in 2019, I applied for a project financed by the European Commission in the framework of the Climate Kick program to support the pilot initiative in Bologna to create an energy community, a renewable energy community, and this allowed us to develop services. Now we provide those services to different local authorities as the energy community is a system innovation you cannot approach only from the technological point of view, but you have to provide different kind of services. So now we have a staff of about 8 persons with different background, and we provide technical assistance for to design and plan the installation of renewables plant, but also we support the local authorities in apply to funding, national and regional course, and we also support the cities in the public procurement process for tendering the installation of plants, but also to participate as member to energy communities, because as public they have to tender even this part. And we also provide financial assistance to develop business plan, and of course legal assistance, because we are looking to create new legal entities. So the legal assistance is quite important. Most of our legal entities are association or cooperative, but you need to develop statute, regulation, and contracts, so it's quite complex. And also we have the technical assistance for photovoltaic plant design, and also, but it's really important, the engagement process. We have persons that work in the cities together with the local authorities to engage the citizens, but also the small and medium companies, and engage them in the energy communities creation. So.
Thank you, Claudia. Very, very comprehensive in terms of what you tackled, some of the issues that Arthur had already mentioned at the beginning. So I'd like to precisely start, and some of you already went into this, but we want to see more closely into what are the local opportunities, but also the challenges, and from your experience extract possible best practices in setting up the energy communities. And I will start with Lefterios. In Kozani, you already set the scene in terms of the challenging context, but what do you believe is the role of energy communities in ensuring a just transition away from coal in this context of the phase out in 2028 in Western Macedonia? And what have been the biggest challenges precisely?
Well, the biggest challenge is to deal all the structural problems of our region. This is, I think, the main problem. And since 2019, have established a program from Just Transition of region after 2028, of course, because then is a very important timeline for us. I think the critical issues for energy communities in Western Macedonia, in order to play a very critical role in this process, is the problem with the energy grid. The energy grid is very important, and I want to say that because we're facing very important problem in Western Macedonia, because we take a negative response from the operator to establish an installation in Kozani. and we cannot probably solve the problems, talk about energy communities without solve very important problems. For us, it's very important to solve the problem with energy, to access to energy grid. Secondly, we need a financial plan, concrete financial plan for energy communities. Third, very important, it's crucial to motivate the people. No, this is not a top-down process. We need a bottom-up process. We need to motivate the people. Energy communities is a cooperative. Cooperative is a structure from the people, from the society. And of course, the people want to see some victories. We have tried to have some victories with not so success. And four, we need a stakeholders cooperation. We need an ecosystem. A cooperative ecosystem is too crucial. And of course, last, complementarity with other programs and initiatives. All these different projects, we have some projects in Western Macedonia, from heat pumps, for energy upgrade of the buildings, should be parts of a greater program, a comprehensive program. Because all these programs without a comprehensive network or something to connect that, don't have the results everybody want. Secondly, at least I want to say that it's too important. Without social dialogue, it's very difficult to have a just transition way. I had the opportunity to study that in my master's degree, and I totally believe that the degree of social participation, of the quality of the social dialogue, is directly proportional of the success to the transition. In Western Macedonia, we have a problem. It's not the case in Western Macedonia, by the Greek government, I think. It's not the procedure in Western Macedonia. We have a very centralized process with limited social dialogue and without the participation of local authorities in the decision-making bodies. This is totally wrong. Because of this method, we're almost facing many problems. One of the problems is the energy communities. Because we don't have program, we don't have a method, we don't have something to prioritize the energy communities as a political issue, because it's almost also a political issue and social issue. And secondly and last, I want to close that, people are pessimistic, of course, and feel that there are no prospect for them and for the children in the area. And I want to connect social dialogue, energy communities, just transition. It's too important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lefterios. And I now turn to Cesar. Cesar, how do you relate to these challenges in Asturias? Yeah. How different or common has it been to go through the establishment of the energy communities?
I think that at the end, the way is quite similar. From our understanding, we consider that the main challenge is the concept of community itself. As far as when you are generating a community, you are incorporating some project action to the citizens. So the real involvement of citizens in the transition means that they need create own action and own benefits for the community. And we will talk with them and talking about this kind of regions, these cities, these municipalities where we can find, we need this sustainable development, taking into account that sustainable development means environment care, means business, and means social well-being. We analyze the promotion of existing projects. These projects are addressing the environment, the Green Deal, also the economic development, but what about the social well-being? If we come back to the citizen to ask about this project, if they feel justice or injustice around these projects, the positive is not quite positive because they don't feel that they are participating in the decision-making loop. That creating communities is a proper way. Creating energy communities is the best way to incorporate people again in the loop, in the transition, in the loop of the transition, from our understanding.
Excellent. So Lefteris had also mentioned, so I take it as the challenge of the inclusiveness, of making it a really democratic, participatory process with involvement directly of the citizens. Very good. Now, I'd like to hear from you, Teresa, I already warned, please, there will be now interpretation from Teresa's intervention, so if you want to activate it in your app. And from you, Teresa, I'd like to hear, precisely because in Czechia, there are not many energy communities yet. We are hopeful that this will change. But we'd like to hear from you what type of assistance could help in accelerating the setting up of energy communities when it comes to planning, to funding, and eventually to launching these projects in carbon-intensive regions.
Thank you for your question. So I will switch to Czech. Děkuji za tu otázku. Je to vlastně stále opakované téma, které zmiňovali i kolegové. Ty problémy, se kterými se potkáváme, jsou i u nás stejné. Vlastně nejvíce nás brzdí v procesu rozvoje energetických komunit to, že není dokončený legislativní rámec. Je již v procesu, některé záležitosti jsou již ošetřeny, nicméně tento zákon vlastně teprve začíná být platný nyní a teprve nyní se vlastně na základě něj můžou energetické komunity o něj opřít. Ještě ale neřeší vlastně nějaké technické věci ohledně zakládání energetických komunit. Ještě není vytvořené datové centrum pro sbírání dat z těchto komunit. Takže vlastně, co nás brzdí v rozvoji, je i tady tato záležitost. Takže ti nadšenci, kteří v České republice již přesto zakládají energetické komunity, kterých je nyní asi 70 v České republice, tak vlastně si musí poradit s tím, že toto prostředí ještě není vyšlapaná cesta. A co bych vlastně doporučila všem, kteří do toho chtějí jít, tak jednak ať nazbírají odvahu a i přesto, že ta cesta vyšlapaná není, tak ať hledají inspiraci ve všech možných okolních státech, kde toto téma je mnohem víc rozvinuté, protože v tomto ohledu musíme přiznat, že jsme trošku pozadu. A taky musím souhlasit vlastně s tím, že toto téma je potřeba rozvíjet v prvé řadě od slova komunita a až potom energetická komunita. Takže platí to, že nejdřív je potřeba vybudovat informovanost lidí, obyčejných občanů a následně stavět vlastně důvěru v toto téma a na téhle důvěře potom budovat nízkoprahové, vlastně rozvoj od nižších pater až po ty vyšší. To je vlastně ten důvod, proč jsem říkala, že místní akční skupina má skvělou pozici pro rozvoj tady toho tématu, protože místní akční skupiny se zabývají v prvé řadě tvorbou důvěry mezi občany, veřejným sektorem a soukromým sektorem a propojují ty tři sektory. A díky tomu jeden druhému nepřekáží v procesu, Protože ať už kterákoliv tato část, ať už soukromý sektor, nebo nějaký starosta ve své obci, anebo nějací občané chtějí vytvořit nějakou komunitu sdílení energetiky, tak opravdu toto téma je o tom, že se všichni musí propojit, aby ty zdroje mohly být smysluplné, diverzifikované, abychom si mohli navzájem pomáhat v co nejširším rozměru.
Thank you, Teresa. So really bringing the relevant actors together. So no one can do it on its own, and the need to bring them all together. I would like then to continue with you, Claudia. And we've been speaking about the challenges of setting up an energy community. But very specifically, when it comes to the challenges of finding the investments, and Arthur had already mentioned this, what is the key challenge in securing those investments? And even though we know Italy is actually very ambitious in terms of its objectives in setting up energy communities, so then when it comes to finding the investments, what are the challenges that you've been meeting there?
So in December 2023, we had the final transposition of the EU directive in the national legislation framework. This happened after 3 years of piloting phase. So we are one of the first countries to have a regulation on energy community, but it cost us a lot of time. So I would say a lot of energy also. There was a sentence we used to say that there were more conferences than energy communities in Italy, because we had a lot of speaking, but nothing happened before December of last year. And we had the final operative regulation 1 month ago. And since last week, we can access to the incentive on the national portal. So it was a very long process, but now it's possible to to create an energy community. And the national decree foreseen a very huge target. We expect to install with this measure about 5 gigawatt of renewable plants. This will represent the 15% of the new power plant generation, renewables power plant generation, so 15% is quite a lot. And the Ministry of Environment also allocated a big budget on this. We have about 5.7 billion of euro, 3.5 are allocated on national incentive. So this will remunerate renewable energy communities with incentive for 20 years, and is based on the self-consumption of the electricity, according with how much electricity is produced by the renewable energy, how much is self-consumed. So related to these calculations provided the incentive, and about 2.2 billion come from the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, and is allocated for small towns, so towns with less than 5,000 inhabitants, to cover the initial investment cost. So is a capital grant to cover the initial cost of the investment for the renewable energies. So both the two measures are quite important. Additionally, every region is allocating budget from the cohesion fund. With structural fund, for example, my region, Emilia-Romagna region, already allocated 4 million euro to create the energy community, so the legal entities. It represents a cost to create the legal entities, also to develop the design of the renewable energies. And also another call is coming and will support the initial investment and co-finance renewable energies with 6 million euro. So as you can see, there is a budget to activate the energy community. So, and I would say the first challenge is who can claim this money. So I would say the local authorities are in first line. in Italy, because I think when you test a new scheme like energy communities, the role of the municipalities is quite important. It's not like just to build a PV plant, but also to set up a new government organization in your city, in your community. So I think local the engagement, the startup of this energy community with the local authorities can facilitate the engagement of the citizen, of the small and medium companies, and also provide transparency on the legal entity organization, but also ensure the impact not only at economical level, but also environmental and social level. So I think the first challenge is to focus on local authorities, but I think the major challenge is how to provide to these new legal entities a long-term sustainability, because of course, in the beginning, you activate them with national and regional funding, but then you ask them to provide ancillary services, to get into the flexibility market, to work on social and environmental projects at local level. And so I think European funding and should focus on this, on how to support those legal entities in the long-term period, and how to work on smart grids and to integrate them with the digital services, blockchain, IoT, and provide also social digital services, how integrate it with the flexibility and storage and sustainable mobility. So I think this will be the focus of European funding for the next years. So.
Thank you for those suggestions. So, and also for indicating that there is a role for EU funds, very concretely in the case of Italy through the recovery and resilience funds, but also through the structural funds being channeled into the setting up of the energy communities, and then the areas you mentioned that indeed are covered through different funds. Now I turn to Lina, because Lina, you actually, well, not you personally, but the project and your energy community project benefited from support through TARGET in cooperation with the EIB. How do you believe that this has helped you overcome the challenges in setting up the energy community?
Thank you. We are making our very first steps, and support of TARGET has helped us to raise the awareness of energy communities, renewable energy communities. And it's a quite new theme in our municipality and in our community, and it's very necessary to raise this. And on the other hand, the project has helped us to connect to other groups who are trying to develop energy communities. For example, Tartu Energy Agency. And as a result of this TARGET project we have a better understanding of the obstacles and challenges which await us when we are registering this community. And the challenges are the same we have heard here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lina, for sharing your concrete experience of the use of EU funds. Then I'd like to go a bit away from the question of the investments and the financial aspects, and to speak about a different enabler, CESAR. In Spain, the Institute for the Diversification and Saving of Energy has established a comprehensive network of one-stop shops for energy communities. And we were very positively impressed by this network of one-stop shops. What can we learn from the establishment of these one-stop shops for energy communities? Is it successful? Is it helpful? Can we have an indication of how many energy communities have been set up thanks to the existence of these one-stop shops?
Thank you for the question. Yes, Arthur previously was showing us different, let's see, community ecosystems conforming like public-private communities, own-private communities, different formulas to implement this concept. So, from our understanding, just the generation of the creation of specific projects, real projects, like lighthouses, or flagships projects in order to show to the public authorities, people, neighborhoods that how to solve, to break different barriers to develop the communities. Because we have to take into account that a community, one local energy community is not only a PV system, it's going beyond the self-consumption facilities. So mostly the questions, the problems are not focused on the technical part, are more oriented to administrative, regulatory, administrative issues. So in this sense, the best way to show to another potential candidates, interested parties to implement communities is showing by these implemented projects that was possible to do it, to break these administrative or regulatory issues in order to implement the communities. Having in mind that the communities go beyond the PV system, go beyond the energy, also supporting implementing issues around buildings, renovations, social aspect. That is the real power of the communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Cesar. And indeed, coming back to the energy communities as part of a broader ecosystem, right, that needs to look into the various aspects and not in an isolated manner. Speaking still of tools and enabling tools, I'd like to hear again from you, Claudia, on what kind of cross-European collaboration would be beneficial to facilitate the exchange precisely of experiences, such as the ones we're sharing now between the carbon-intensive regions on implementing the Green Deal and implementing and mobilizing the energy communities.
Yeah. Being part of this Cohesion4Transition working group is an opportunity to exchange experience among Europe, and of course we have noticed that there are a number of countries that still have to define the legal framework. Most of them copy and paste the directive without a proper regulation that enable the creation of energy communities. So of course, there are not a lot of best practice in Europe. What I would like to mention is the experience that we are running in Italy, and is also shared in other countries of the Mediterranean area. I think Spain, Portugal, and Greece are also implementing this, that we are taking the opportunity of renewable energy communities to fight against the energy poverty. And I think is an opportunity that cannot be missed, because if you implement measures and policies when you regulate the energy communities, you can really provide benefit to the vulnerable people and also low-income households. So, for example, in Italy, we have the regulation that if there are small and medium companies that are members of the energy communities, then the 50% of the economical benefit should go to low-income families and vulnerable people. And so you can also foreseen that there are no upfront costs to become member of the energy communities or shareholder. So there is also this opportunity. I think Greece also provide technical assistance to low-income families in case they require technical assistance for reduce their energy bill. And so you can really take this opportunity, and I think is a very good practice to be replicated in other contexts.
Thank you, Claudia. Then I'd move on to Teresa. So looking into the future, as we are now, so how can we take this further? In Czechia, there was a commission-funded project, Support to Creation of Energy Communities. What do you believe can be the long-term benefits, and how can we replicate them across the EU? And we'll turn again to our application now for the interpretation.
Děkuji za dotaz. Takže co se týče vlastně té nabídnuté pomoci, tak v rámci této byly vytvořeny dokumenty, které nám pomáhají rozšiřovat toto téma, a to je taková jakási příručka, které jsme byli součástí její tvorby, kde právě sdílení dobré praxe může pomoci všem, kdo se chystají zakládat energetické komunity, jednak se inspirovat tím, že už něčím takovým někdo prošel, a kontaktovat přímo třeba tyto komunitní energetiky a tyto organizace, které se tím zabývají. Ty příručky se taky vlastně zabývají všemi možnými problémy, o kterých jsme dnes tady mluvili. Takže jako nastínění toho tématu, s čím se zakládající potká, je to velmi dobrý začátek. Toto bych určitě velmi doporučila pro replikování, tak jak jste zmiňovala. Dalším aspektem, o kterém mluvila kolegyně, je to, že i mimo tady tento program probíhá velká podpora vlastně na té nízkoprahové úrovni pro podporu nízkopříjmových domácností, a to vlastně pomáhá budovat takovou tu důvěru, bazální důvěru občanů ve spolupráci na tomto tématu. Takže určitě i v tomto ohledu bych velmi doporučovala vlastně využívat možnosti různých dotačních programů a rozšiřovala toto téma kdekoliv v EU.
Thank you, Teresa. Then I think we have a final question for Liftarius. Just precisely because technical assistance was mentioned. What do you believe, Liftarius, based on your experience, what type of advisory support or type of technical assistance would be necessary to facilitate the establishment of the energy communities? The mic.
Well, first of all, I think we need. I forget to say that our main goal is as a network is to install net metering installations, virtual net metering from the society in order to cover the energy needs of households. And I think we need financial support, first of all. It's as a region from JTF, Greece can use more than 1.6 billion euros. Only for Western Macedonia is up of 1 billion. In this money you can add also other EU funds, more than 300 euros. We have a lot of money in Western Macedonia. We have a lot of money for a just energy transition. I think we have an open window and an opportunity for us to solve the problem I said before, for energy poverty. And I think we need to motivate to use this fund to use this fund to cover the energy needs into a whole process for energy poverty and for energy transition. Secondly, we need access to grid. in 2021, we submitted our first application connection to an energy grid. After 2 years, we received a negative response from the operator due to lack of energy grid. In Western Macedonia, it was for many decades the energy heart of the Greece. Now became again the energy heart of the Greece via photovoltaic solar parks. In the next 1 or 2 years, will be installed more than 6 megawatts photovoltaic solar parks. Only the PPC, the owner of lignite fields, will install more than 2 gigawatts installations, photovoltaic solar parks. And we cannot, as energy communities, to install just a half of a megawatt. This is crazy. Of course, we can talk here about happy, but we have problems, and we need to solve these problems. If we lost this opportunity, this open window for Western Macedonia, we're facing very existential problems. The problem of Western Macedonia have existential characters, and the opportunities are now. And I think we have problems, but our goal is to use us as an open window to solve this problem. And secondly, I repeat that we need an ecosystem. And municipalities, because I was a mayor, have a very important role to play because, first of all, these municipalities can motivate the people. It's, the municipalities are too close to the society, have a very structural role to play. And secondly, municipalities can motivate the other stakeholders, universities, regional authorities, private investments, chambers. We need an ecosystem. We need a pathway, and we need, of course, a vision. I think this is the 3 very important elements for a success story for energy. And we, as network, we're very, we strongly believe to this pathway. It's a voluntary for us process, but we strongly believe that we should use this open window for the local society in Western Macedonia. And I think this is a common problem from energy transition regions across Europe.
And we're hearing really some very common elements.
I want to add that because I have been participating in many conferences with other energy communities through Europe, the problems are the same.
Yeah.
And of course, we need to exchange our experiences.
Absolutely.
We as Greece, we can help the West Balkans countries, probably. But we can help from other countries like Germany or Central Europe countries which have more experience for us. We need to exchange our experience to help each other. Thank you.
And this is one of the big assets also of the European Commission and this institution of bringing you all together precisely to have the opportunity to exchange your very, very valuable experience. And I'd like now to turn to the audience, both in the room and online, to benefit from the presence of these panelists with a very practical experience and ask your questions. And I already see here in the first line a request for the floor, which is very good. And I see then one back there, and we'll also check online if there are any questions. So if you can just present yourself.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Nasos Sofos. I work in the European Commission, DG Regio, in the Greek desk. And I follow the topic of just transition. Thank you to all speakers for the excellent presentations. Actually, the energy community subject is a very hot topic and a very interesting topic, I would say. We are much for energy communities in the European Commission in general and in DG Regio in particular. This is why we are trying to set up schemes for funding towards the either establishment and the operation of energy communities, in our case, in Greece. I would like to ask a question, because I heard, and it's much true, that there is a difficulty to access the grid, and therefore this happens in Greece, it's true. The Ministry of Energy, who is how can I say, overviewing, supervising the operator, is an instance that provides these licenses. There are actually some energy communities that have licenses already in Greece, and those, I'm happy to say at least, that they will be able to participate in a call that the program has launched of 42 million. It's ongoing until the end of April. This is the first time ever that in Greece there is a kind of call for energy communities. 42 million from the Just Transition program. These are the good news. The bad news is the lack access to the grid. Those who have already access to the grid will be able to participate in this call. And the remaining people should wait for the ministry and the operator to give them access to the grid. We hope that this will happen soon, and therefore we have more funding that could be available for the second, let's say, part. I would like to ask, therefore, how many, two questions, how many other countries, let's say, have problems, issues, difficulties with access to the grid, similar to the Greek case that we heard? And second, how many, apart from Italy that I heard, and I'm not sure, are financing or intend to finance energy communities? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if we'll be able to answer how many member states have difficulties with access to the grid. I don't know if Arto can help us there, and if not, that will clearly be for us a takeaway to find out and work with member states in ensuring that such access to the grid, what can be facilitated, accelerated, and the more so if this is a condition to benefit from the EU funding. But Cesar, I saw that you wanted to address it.
Yeah, thank you. From the Asturian point of view, taking into account our DSO, previously during last year, both parties, the regional government, the industrial part, along with the DSO, was discussing about the different electrical schemes to provide this point of interconnection in between the facility to the network. So this aspect was solved, and now different PV systems and licenses are ongoing. So we have overcoming this problem in Asturias and I think in Spain. And regarding the funding, for sure, there are different calls from the IDAE, for our National Energy Agency, also supported by the regional administration to promote specific local energy communities, but not only PV system. Also, there are two different calls, one of them supporting PV system, and the other one supporting the creation, the implementation, the preparation, and maintenance in the future by proper operation of these local energy communities.
Very good. Thank you, Cesar. Anyone else would like to come into this question? Lefterius, yes?
As Mr. Sofos says, yes, in Greece we have an open call for energy communities, but only for the municipalities. But even the municipalities have the opportunities to participate due to the lack of energy grid, except municipality of Kozani, which have one project of 6 megawatts for an energy community, which established when I was mayor. And now it's the only project in the whole Western Macedonia for virtual net metering for self-consumption. And our main proposal is for funding only for virtual net metering proposals from energy communities, to clarify that. Secondly, we don't have any information about the future. How many money funding will Greek program provide to fund energy communities? We don't know yet. We don't have any participation. Secondly, thirdly, we proposed, even in Mr. Kansten, Nasus We had a meeting with him and make some proposals to solve the problem of energy grid. First of all, a cooperation with the owner of the land, the PPC, which installed 2 gigawatts solar parks in Western Macedonia. We can develop a relation, help each other, probably. We propose a lot of things to solve the problem, but we don't have an answer. We don't receive an answer.
So, clearly, this is an issue
And I'm afraid that we lost the open window and the money, Mr. Sofos.
for the call.
It's.
Thank you. We have one question in the back, and we have one question online. So we'll first go to the question online, and then one question to the back. We take the two together, and we take a third one there, and we try to then reply as a group to those 3 questions.
Yeah, from the online audience, we have a question about cultivating leadership. So it reads, considering today's diverse and dynamic workforce, what strategies can organizations and authorities implement to cultivate leadership and empower members of the local communities, so citizens, to become leaders of energy communities?
Okay, so the issue about the empowerment, the awareness raising, and then the empowerment. So that's the first question from our online audience. Then we have a question there. Yes, Julia?
Hi, yes. Hi, I'm Julia Hoffmann. I work for EFOC. We are working a lot on citizens' participation. So when Eleftherios, when you talked about the social dialogue, that struck me. And I just wanted to come back to it. I'm here behind the column, so you can see me. I think, like, I was wondering why you said that we need more social dialogue, so I assume there is not enough. Wondering maybe for some of the reasons for that, and I could imagine that one of that is that because when you go down to the social dialogue within your region, it gets very controversial and conflictual very soon and very quickly, because what we talk about is very hard topics like job losses, income drops, energy poverty, and social justice, which is very conflictual. So maybe sometimes that's the reason why the social dialogue doesn't take place, because we're afraid of getting into those topics. And sometimes maybe we don't have actually right answers and quick answers to those problems. So I was just trying to make maybe a suggestion to when it comes to social dialogue, I think it needs to be prepared well. So you need to understand first who will be in the audience. You need to know, are we talking about the former mine workers? Are we talking with unskilled workers, skilled workers, women, whatever you want to call the, whoever will be part of those groups. And I think maybe just a suggestion then, when you want to go into those social dialogues, that you maybe first start with like really focused interviews, focus groups or something like that to know and understand their needs and expectations first. And also, since I'm working a lot with citizen assemblies, I just want to raise that as well as maybe one tool and format that could be helpful. And Paula had mentioned the European example that just took place on energy efficiency. I think citizen assemblies can be a good tool to bring down the dialogue to the local level, because you work with randomly chosen citizens and then get into a more, maybe less controversial talk, because it's not just about emotions, but it's solution-oriented. So just wanted to hear maybe some of your experience, really, what are challenges, but maybe also some experiences with the social dialogue.
Okay, and we need to go for the final question, thank you, which was there in the back.
Yeah, hi, my name is Eliza Barnea from Bankwatch, Romania. We already talked about energy communities as a solution to the energy poverty that's very prevalent in the just transition regions. But I was wondering, because in a lot of cases, the most urgent interventions are maybe in rural, isolated areas or in vulnerable communities like the Roma communities, which also face challenges such as ownership rights or housing infrastructure. I was wondering if you've faced this kind of, you've had this kind of experiences, and what were the most important steps that you've identified? Thank you.
Thank you very much for these questions. Very, very topical. I fear we may need a session 2 on these just transitions, because we're now entering really more into the depthness of it. So we have 3 questions on leadership and empowerment, on the role and challenges of social dialogue, and how to go about the rural and isolated areas. Can we, it will have to be in a very succinct manner. Who would like to come in? I see Claudia.
Yeah.
On which one?
Okay.
Or on 3?
I
on
can
the 3
approach the 3 of them.
Very good, very good.
So in our experience, it's hard to talk directly with the citizen. I mean, it's difficult for them to rise up and say, I would like to create an energy community. There are so many risks and so many questions that it's very complicated. What we are going now to do is to train the managers of energy communities. So we are setting up a capacity building program to manage the energy community, so even citizens can participate and can, after that, create their energy community, so to reduce the risk of creating this kind of legal entity and manage it. And this is, I think, on the first 2 questions. And the second one, rural areas. We work a lot on the mountain rural areas, and the strategy is put together many local authorities, many areas, so enlarge the area and put them together and work with different local authorities at the same time, and so they can also work on and overcome barriers and find solutions together. So this is my recommendation.
Thank you, Claudia. Cesar, you also wanted to come in.
Yeah, just a few comments about the social acceptance. So to these regards, we have to take into account that we find out a huge gap in between the policymakers and the big players creating big projects around the region that with the people, the citizens. So this means that the people consider that they are not participating in the loop, so they are being behind. So in order to incorporate again the people in the loops, they need to participate directly in the transition, but obviously they are not going to create big projects, big regional projects, but they can promote using the communities, the local communities, their own projects for them, for the community, creating this feeling that they are participating and contributing to the community, to the neighborhood, to the district. So this is very well received in order to incorporate people in the loop. So this is one our first conclusion. And regarding the rural areas, taking again to the concept of community and considering that the concept of community from time ago is losing a bit, especially in urban ecosystem, we consider that the rural areas could be is a better scenario to replicate the concept of community and generate local communities. And as you was mentioned, the poverty issue, the energy poverty and the poverty risk in general issue is easily affordable using this community, because one of the main problems for poverty is to identify the real poverty, because it's not so easy to discover the real people suffering this situation. And if we are talking to national level or regional level, it's impossible to analyze or monitor these indicators. In this sense, local authorities, district, association, communities are more close to these people, able to discover these real needs. And as far as local energy communities have to be beyond the PV systems, the implementation of different action against the renovations, windows, avoid condensation at home. So this kind of action oriented to the comfort situation of people is very well recognized into the local energy communities.
Okay. Good, thank you, Cesar. And Teresa, I see that you wanted to also come back to these questions.
Yes, only shortly. I will answer to the third questions and then to the first question in Czech again. So, co se týče vlastně těch témat, těch nízkopříjmových klientů nebo těch nízkopříjmových občanů, tak v naší republice právě na toto téma už jsou nějaké dotační programy, které v rámci tohoto tématu jako se zaměřují na ty nízkopříjmové domácnosti, do kterých by se dalo zařadit i romská komunita. Nevím, jak je to u vás, nicméně určitě vlastně i energetické komunity můžou pomáhat v tomto tématu právě tím, že součástí těch energetických komunit nemusí být pouze ti, kteří budou ty energie vytvářet ty energetické zdroje, ale budou se zapojovat právě i občané, kteří budou třeba pouze příjemci. Takže je třeba myslet i na tady toto. A co se týče prvního dotazu, tak i obyčejný občan se může zapojit tím, že vlastně vyhledá svého starostu osloví někdo ze soukromého sektoru a mohou zakládat právě společenství, jako reprezentuju já, například Enerkom, které je právě zaměřené na sdružování těchto lidí, kteří mají zájem o rozvíjení témata energetiky. A následně mohou snadněji tito lidé, kteří se v tomto tématu pohybují a něco pro něj dělají, vytvářet energetické komunity.
Yeah. Thank you, Teresa. And Eleftherios, challenge to you in half a minute, if you can address maybe the first question, because I see the enthusiasm, but we're already going beyond the time.
Very, very briefly.
Thank you.
The European Commission in the European Union, in the regulation of the Just Transition Fund, demands the co-formation of the territorial Just Transition plans, because understands that Just transition process is very complex transition. It's not a development plan. It's a change of the social structure. It's important that people to believe that this is a property of the society, this plan. Many changes, many different, the history of transition have persuaded the European Union, the scholarship, that just transition without social dialogue, it's something not working. We need an open dialogue. It's important for the people to believe and to cover the problem with the resistance. You need to persuade the people and the miners that we're something to change. In Western Macedonia, the main problem, it was for many years the resistance. Because the people there believe that we live with lignite for many, many decades, many for centuries. This was totally wrong. For this reason, we need an open dialogue. We need an open arena. All the stakeholders, all the people, all the authorities, different point of views, everything. But we need an open social dialogue, not just dialogue, but we need a co-formation, the cooperation of the planning. I want to tell something about...
Very briefly, if you don't mind.
Okay, so for the vulnerables in Greece, in municipalities, energy communities can have the obligation to cover the energy needs of vulnerable people. This was our main obligation. It is one of main target to cover the needs of vulnerable groups in our area through the energy communities.
Thank you very much. And don't get me wrong, I would stay here for another 2 hours, but I would be fired as moderator. So in a very nutshell, so first of all, the role of energy communities in just transition. They do play a crucial role, but for that we do need some key conditions. Social dialogue has been one which has been mentioned. You cannot have a just transition without social dialogue. We've mentioned a number of challenges in setting up the communities. Grid, access to grid has been mentioned, I would say, as a key one. Of course, the financial aspects of it, the financial plan is another one. We are trying to help with EU funds which go precisely into this direction in setting up the energy communities. We've seen that the challenge of motivating people, of bringing them along, that it needs to be a bottom-up process and not imposed on the citizens who are the ultimate beneficiaries of this. We need data also to be able to really set up these communities. But it's not just about challenges, it is about the enabling conditions, the enablers, and there the enablers is, as you said, a dialogue, an inclusive approach, democratic participation. It's about increasing awareness and building trust. For that you need information, and that's where Arthur's toolkit comes in, and that's where best practices come in, and where we can facilitate through setting up exchanges, platforms. And it's also about other type of incentives, remuneration-based performance of the energy communities, for instance. So we've also identified a number of best practices which we have shared and we will replicate. I'm looking at my colleagues, we'll find ways of replicating these best practices in order to help you going out there to your local authorities in your regions and setting up these energy communities. Please, a big round of applause to a very enthusiastic panel.